Mr. Wright here, and welcome to this film on bounds. In this film, I'm working my way through some IGCSE questions on bounds about grades 3, 4, and 5. If you'd like to download a copy of the questions, then hit the link in the description, and then you can either do the questions and then watch me do them, or you can watch the film whilst you're doing the questions yourself, and we can sort of work alongside each other, entirely up to you. If you find this film useful, please do hit like and tell me so. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments, and of course I'll respond. And if you are enjoying my content and you are finding it is helping your maths, then hit subscribe. Right, let's get on with the maths. Question 1. A rectangle has a length of 21 centimetres to the nearest centimetre. So that means that the length's upper bound is 21.5 and its lower bound is 20.5, and a width of 5.3 centimetres to the nearest centimetre. So we've got an upper bound 5.35 and a lower bound of 5.25. Work out the upper bound for the perimeter of the rectangle. Well, the perimeter of the rectangle is going to be the length times length plus the width, plus the length plus the width, or twice the length plus the width. So twice length plus width. And if I want the upper bound, I'll use the upper bound for the length, 21.5, and the upper bound for the width, 5.35. So all I need to do is use my calculator to work out 21.5 plus 5.35, and then multiply the result by 2, giving me 53.7 centimetres. Now work out the lower bound for the area of the rectangle. Well, to work out the area of the rectangle, we're going to do the length times the width, and if I want the lower bound, I'll use the lowest possible length and the lowest possible width. So this time I'm going to put 20.5 times 5.25 in my calculator to give me the answer 107.625. And that is question 1 sorted. Question 2. We have a circle and it has a radius of 5 centimetres to the nearest centimetre, which means that the upper bound of that radius is 5.5 centimetres and the lower bound is 4.5 centimetres. Work out the lower bound for the circumference of the circle. Right, well, the circumference of the circle is pi times d, and d, of course, is twice the radius. I'm going to work out the lower bound for the circumference. I want the lowest possible diameter, which is going to be 4.5 times 2, the lowest possible radius, doubled, so that's 9. So the lower bound for the circumference will be pi times 9, and it says give your answer in terms of pi. So the answer is simply 9 pi. Work out the upper bound for the area of the circle. Well, if I'm going to work out the upper bound of the area, remember area is pi r squared, then I'm going to use the highest possible radius. So the highest possible radius is 5.5, that's the upper bound. So I'm going to say that my area is pi times 5.5 times 5.5. And again, it says give your answer in terms of pi. So I'll use my calculator to work out 5.5 times 5.5. So that is 30.25 times pi. So I'm going to write here 30.25 pi. And that is question 2 done and dusted. Question 3. Okay, so a rectangular field has a length of 105 metres to the nearest 5 metres. So that's 105, and I need to think what would the upper bound and the lower bound be. Well, halve 5 and add it on, 107.5, halve 5 and take it off, 102.5. There's the lower bound and the upper bound of the length of my field. and the width is 53 metres to the nearest metre. So 53.5 for the upper bound, 52.5 for the lower bound. Work out the lower bound for the perimeter. Well, the perimeter is twice the length plus the width, and I want the lower bound, so I'm going to do twice the lowest possible length plus the lowest possible width. So that is what I'm going to put into my calculator. So I've got 102.5 plus 52.5, and double that gives me 310 metres. Okay, work out the upper bound for the area. Well, the area of the field is obviously the length times the width, and I want the upper bound, so I shall use the highest possible length, the upper bound of my length, and the upper bound of my width. So that's what I'm putting into my calculator this time, which gives me 5,751.25. Question 3, sorted. Question 4, a circle has a radius of 5.36 centimetres correct to 2 decimal places. So the radius is 5.36. Now correct to 2 decimal places. So the upper bound will be 5.365 and the lower bound 5.355. Work out the lower bound for the circumference of the circle. Well, the circumference of the circle is pi d, and the diameter, of course, is twice the radius, and I want the lower bound, so I'll find the lowest possible diameter, which is twice 5.355. 5.355 times by 2 gives me 10.71. Okay, so that's the lowest possible diameter. So the lower bound of the circumference of the circle will be c equals pi times 10.71, which of course I've already got on my calculator. So I'll times that by pi, which gives me an answer on my calculator of 33.6464 and so on. And I'm asked to give my answers to 2 decimal places. So that's going to be 33.65. Okay, part B. Work out the upper bound for the area of the circle. Well, the area of the circle is given by pi r squared, and I'm going to take my highest possible radius, which is 5.365, because then I'll end up with the highest possible area. So 5.365 squared multiplied by pi. So pi times 5.365 squared, and that gives me, on my calculator, 90.425, 1 and so on, 3 significant figures. So my cutoff point is after the 4 there, so my answer is 90.4 square centimetres. Question 5. Right, I've got 2 variables here, s and t, and I've got a formula for v. And s here is given correct to 2 decimal places. So let's work out the upper and the lower bounds of s. Well, the upper bound is going to be 4.155, and the lower bound 4.145. Now, what about t? T is given correct to 3 decimal places. So the upper bound is going to be 2.5165, and the lower bound 2.5155. Now in this question I'm asked to work out the upper bound for v. So I want v, which by the way equals s over t, I want that to be as high as possible. And if I want s divided by t to be as high as possible, I'm going to take the highest possible s and the lowest possible t, because when you divide s by the lowest possible t, you'll end up with the highest possible answer. So that's going to be the highest possible s, 4.155 divided by the lowest possible t, 2.5155. I'm asked to give my answer to 3 decimal places. Look, so 4.155 divided by 2.5155 gives me, on my calculator, 1.65175, and so on. Now 3 decimal places, so my answer is going to be 1.652. And that's question 5 finished. Question 6. Okay, so I've given a formula for v here, and v is a function of I and r. Now I is given here correct to 2 decimal places. So if it's 5.92 to 2 decimal places, the upper bound is 5.925 and the lower bound 5.915. And r is given to me correct to 3 decimal places. So it's 12.356, so it'd be 12.3565 and 12.355. Now I've got to work out the upper bound for v. Now v equals I times r. If you want the highest possible v, then you're going to want to use the highest possible I and the highest possible r, since we're multiplying those 2 variables together. So that's going to be 5.925 multiplied by 12.3565. And I'm asked to give my answer to 3 decimal places. So 5.925 multiplied by 12.3565 equals, so that gives me 73.21226, and so on. Now to 3 decimal places, my answer is going to be 73.212, because of course it doesn't round up in this case. That's number 6 done. Mr. Right here, that's the lot for those questions. If you'd like to do some more questions on bounds, you will find another film with bounds questions about grades 6, 7, 8, 9, also in this playlist. If you found the film useful, please hit like and tell me so. Questions in the comments, and of course I'll respond. And if you are enjoying this content and it's helping your maths, then hit subscribe. See you in the next film.